Welcome to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast with your host, legendary powerlifter and strength athlete, Chad Ikes. For most, the journey of strength starts in the gym, but should inevitably expand through all aspects of life. Join us as we discuss all things strength. Now, here's your host, Chad Ikes.
I am back here with another episode. I recently talked in a few episodes about how there's so many experts on social media and they all have their science and their studies. And this is still rolling around in my head. And I was thinking about it again this morning, so I thought I would do another podcast. Basically what happened is there's a guy that I actually like. I respect him. He's built really amazing. I've seen a lot of clients that he's helped. Now, on the flip side of that, I don't know how many people he has that aren't successful or making the amazing gains, which is another factor people need to think about. Just because you see a guy like, whoa, he's got like 5 great power lifters. Well, he might have hundreds of people that aren't doing that great or are doing average or are doing good, but they're not at that level. Like, you can't just judge it by, hey, I've seen a couple of really great people he's worked with. And it also depends on how long he's been in it, how long he's been doing it, what kind of access he has to the kind of people that want to push through that. Like, I train a lot of different types of people, and on the whole, I have more people that just looking for quality of life, which actually is fairly easy to help them with. But anyway, I was watching another video of this guy, and he said a couple things were basically not true and it's BS. And these are things that have been talked about and gone on for centuries. And they're true. They're true. They're true. In my mind, they're completely and utterly true. There's no way you can say that these are not true with my background in physical therapy, with my background with, working in injuries and all kinds of different, like wound care, mental health, strokes, all these different things, and working with athletes. Like, he's wrong. Like, I will 100% argue that one. But I stepped back and I went, so like, nobody's perfect. We're all human. So, and we're all going to have disagreements. Like, you can't say there's one thing and you're going to stop watching a person because of that. You take the stuff that's good and leave the stuff that's bad. But again, I'm going further down this rabbit hole, and I'm like, it's amazing what's going on out there in social media and in society these days. And maybe there's guys that are super intelligent, but they're like, I want to make money, man. So I'm going to play this role. Maybe it's not what I do. Maybe this isn't what I do with my clients, but I'm going to play this role to grow my business. And I can't say that that's a bad thing. I don't want to do it. And I know from what I've seen that in social media, if you do a lot of dumb stuff, a lot of crazy stuff, if you're really way far on one side or the other, and if you act like you're dead on, I know everything I know is right, everyone else is wrong, you're going to get tons of followers. If you come at it from, hey, this is me. I have a lot of knowledge. I have a lot of experience. I help others people achieve great things. I can help you, but I'm not perfect. And it may take time, and we may have to work through some issues, which may take time. But I'm confident that I'm going to help you in the end. You're not going to be as popular. You're not going to be as famous. I am not, that's some huge psychological thing, but from what I see, from the people that I know, and a lot of the coaches that I respect, they don't have anywhere near the followers that some of these other crazy people do. So back to this whole science side. Everybody has their science. And I find it curious how everyone can claim they have science and everyone can claim they have their studies, yet they're different. I mean, the way science works is you eventually come up with, this is the answer. We did studies, we proved that it's correct. 2 + 2 = 4. That's it. Now, yes, it can take a long time to get to that point. But why is there so much of this craziness in the fitness industry and strength industry? And why can't we see that people are different? I kind of look at this as, and I think this is actually the case, mechanical physics and quantum physics. When quantum physics started coming out, it started throwing wrenches in basically mechanical physics. And so it's like there's these two different worlds. This all works until we get down to a level that's so small, now it no longer works. Now, why is that? What happens in between there? That's a lot of stuff that we're still learning. And I don't know if we'll ever understand that. But now if you think of that same thing on how the human body works, we're just like everything else in this universe. You know, you can keep breaking the human body down into atoms, then into particles, then into quarks. And there's stuff smaller than quarks that we're just learning about. So how can you say for sure you know what's right or wrong, or you know your studies worked? If I do a study on top athletes, why can't I say, yeah, this works for these high-level athletes? Or, hey, I did a study on mid-level powerlifters. This works for mid-level powerlifters. Or beginners. This is going to work for beginners. Why are we lumping everyone in together? And why aren't we calculating or trying to calculate or trying to factor in the human individual, the human mind, the human spirit, the human will? I find it funny that in fitness, we want to find these finite, perfect, this is the way to do it. This is the best way to do it. I don't believe there is that. And I don't believe there is that from looking at athletes, from working with athletes, from being an athlete. You can go through my whole career and it had to change. My training had to change depending on where I was at. What worked when I was younger didn't work now. What worked when I was not as strong didn't work. And now I'm coming through this whole evolution of coming to the top, having to back down and get weaker due to mental health, due to injuries. And so I keep dropping down, building myself back up, dropping down, building myself back up. And I'm able to keep trying different things the whole time. And even when I find something that works, and then I go, hey, I'm going to try this on my clients. And then my clients see results or don't see results, either way. And by the way, isn't this a scientific study? I'm experimenting. I'm going out there and I'm going, here's what I have. I just don't have the money to have a huge crew and do thousands of lifters. I do very small studies. And I'm the first to go, well, okay, it works now and it works for these people. Do I know that it's going to work for everyone? Not necessarily. But when I coach and when I preach, I'm like, here's concepts, here's ideas, here's theories. You're still going to have to bend it to the person. And that's where I think strength coaches will always be needed. I don't think a computer's ever going to be able to judge a person. So everything changed. And most of the athletes that I know, things changed, or if they stayed the same, that's when they stopped making gains because they wouldn't change. And you have to keep adapting because we're humans, we're adapting, we're changing every single day. And we should be changing in multiple different ways. So again, you think you can find one program that's going to work forever? I mean, even and guys who go, well, so-and-so trained this way for 30 years. Well, where did he peak? Where did he stop? Did he make continuous gains that whole time? And maybe he did the same program, but did he give himself more rest? Did he increase his calories? Did he change how his mental state was going into that? Did he change things about his life? There's a lot of different factors going into that. Yeah, he trained the same way he did before he went pro, but now he was making money so he could get more rest. So as he got stronger, he did change his training because he was getting more rest. And I find this all really interesting because I find it interesting that people follow who they follow. And I find it interesting that everybody seems to want to pin down this one program. I just need the right program. I just need the right exercises. Yet for some reason, we love an underdog story. And underdog stories are usually people that have to go about becoming winners in a different way. They can't do what everyone else is doing because they have, like Rudy, the football movie. He's a little guy. And he still never actually, he played a game or two, I believe, in the end, but he never like made it. But we love that story. People love that movie. Well, he had to work harder because he was smaller. Actually, being smaller kind of allowed him to work harder in a way too. And the boxing movies, like we love all these underdog stories. Yet we think that we can train the same as everyone else and achieve, which seems to me kind of contradictory. Now, on top of this, we love underdog stories where guys work super, super hard. And by work hard, let me define work. They do physical work really hard. They do the physical really hard. Now, if someone does the opposite of that to be successful, we call them lazy. There's a story. I don't like throwing people under the bus here, but so I'm going to tell a story without names. We had a coach at one of the gyms here who had been an Olympic lifter, and he was an Olympic lifting coach. And he was on the team when this other individual happened to be on the team. And this guy, he's a pretty well-known guy, and he's done multiple strength sports and been successful. When we were talking about him, he goes, everyone kind of like hated him at the Olympic lifting. And everybody thought he was lazy, and it just frustrated everybody because he wasn't working as hard. And I remember thinking, well, wait a minute. Like, is he really lazy, or he just has the confidence to do what he knows he needs to do? It's funny how we tend to jump to conclusions on other humans instead of actually going, well, wait a minute, that person's successful. Why are they successful? Which is the outlook that I took was, well, maybe he's not lazy. Maybe that's what he needed to do to get there. I mean, how did he get there? The fact that he got there, I don't give a shit how much genetics you have. You're doing something else right. And I started thinking about it, and I go, well, wait a minute. Maybe this guy knows that if he does more than this, it's going to overdo his body. Maybe he comes in and goes, man, my body's telling me not to do this. And he just automatically listens to himself. So maybe he's way smarter than we think he is. And maybe he's not lazy. Maybe he knows where he wants to get and what he wants to do, and he's doing what it takes to get there. And this was another similar thing in my lifting, because I am on the far end of the spectrum. There's the genetically talented, things go really good in people's lives. They don't have a lot of shit to deal with. And then I'm on the other end of that spectrum where, I had chronic compartment syndrome, had to have surgery, had all kinds of weird medical stuff my whole life. Then we come to my sleep problems and the fact that I don't get deep sleep, so I recover like shit. But eventually I realized that, listen, I don't have what a lot of these other guys have, so I'm going to have to go about this a different way. And I tried the physical hard work part. I tried doing more physical hard work. It didn't work. I couldn't find a way to make it work. And in fact, everybody on my team tried the same thing. And it didn't work. So I finally got the confidence and courage to go, I don't care what everyone else is doing. I am not everyone else. I need to figure out how to do this on my own. And I didn't throw away all the good information and the good studies and all that science stuff that's out there. But I started picking and choosing and going, okay, this kind of makes sense to me. I understand this. Still, in this form, it is not working for me. So how can I modify and change this to work for me? Because it makes sense. Well, that's how I became one of the greatest powerlifters of my time. That's how I took the guys on my team who had been struggling for years and years and years to hit certain numbers, and bam, all of a sudden we're blowing those numbers away. I mean, I'm talking about guys that wanted to pull 700 pounds are now pulling 8. Guys that just wanted to bench 4 end up benching 7. Guys that wanted to squat 7 end up squatting 1,000. Because I went, wait a minute, maybe more doesn't mean more physical training. Maybe more means a stronger mind. It means trusting yourself. It means listening to your body. Maybe more means stopping drinking. Maybe more means stopping partying on the weekends. Maybe more means getting more sleep. Maybe more means having the courage to go, I want to lift heavy today, man, but I can't because my body's not ready yet. More can mean a lot of things, and training hard can mean a lot of things. Yet generally, I see people jump to one conclusion, and I was that way for a long time. It wasn't until I opened my eyes and actually started thinking about it that I saw, wait a minute, this isn't the way. Just because everyone else is doing this doesn't make it right. And this is the same thing with a lot of the studies. I see all these studies, and then these studies come out and they kind of keep proving the same fact, where I'm going, well, wait a minute, you didn't really give a good study to the other end of it, or the other side of it. You know, say the HIIT training towards high rep training thing. Well, that's going to depend a lot on the person, and that's going to depend a lot on their skill levels. I don't think a HIIT training program is going to do a whole lot for a new person because they don't have the skill to actually push to where they need to push to actually do like one set. It's going to take a better advanced lifter. And then you might have people that don't have the ability to actually push as far as they need to for one set. And this again, I go back to the human mind and the human spirit and the human will. Why aren't we kind of considering those things when we're training people and when we're giving them programs? Some people, like myself, like that super, super heavy, super crazy, how hard can I push myself for one set? And then there's other people that don't like that. And those people are going to do way better doing 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 12 reps over trying to do some kind of HIIT training. And even, are you training by yourself, or do you actually have a coach pushing you? I find a lot of clients, my in-person clients, they always want to quit before they could. At least the vast majority of them. If I wasn't there, they wouldn't have got those extra 5 sets. They would have never even tried to push. They're like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, no, you're not done. Keep going. And I'll get in their face and then they'll get it done. But I can help push them through the pain that way. Where a lot of people can't do that. So if you put them on a HIIT, they're never going to push to that level. So then they're actually probably going to end up undertrained, and they're not going to see the gains that they could if they trained more often. So picking out a program to fit the individual is really important. And every study I've ever seen somebody gets stronger. Every time I see someone bag on someone else on the internet, that person is already successful. That person is already built great. They're already super strong. And I'm like, again, I just said this in one of my last podcasts. How can you with a straight face tell me that that program doesn't work when it has worked for the guy that's doing it? Like, you got to be pretty slow to not realize that. I don't know if it worked for anybody else, but it worked for that guy. So you can't tell me it doesn't work. You can tell me maybe it doesn't work for the masses. Maybe it's not going to work for everybody, which I don't think there's any program out there that works for everybody, because like I said, we're all different. We all have different stuff to deal with. I think a lot of guys, if they would have just listened to me when I was competing, the guys that were bagging on me because Chad doesn't train enough, this doesn't work, it's not right. Well, how did I just beat you then? If it doesn't work, how did I just beat you? And those same guys will go, oh, it doesn't work for me. I'm like, have you tried it? They're like, no, I need to do more. I go, so you've tried doing more? Yeah, and I got beat up. I got injured, and so I don't know if it worked because I got injured. Well, you got injured because you were beating yourself up. So you're going to keep trying more and keep getting bad results, but you're not going to try less. Yet you're going to tell me that you're following the science. It doesn't seem very scientific to me. It's interesting. It's just this whole thing fascinates me, and it fascinates me because I want to help people. When I was lifting and guys were like, man, that's crazy. You lift those numbers. I work so hard. How do you get that strong only training 8 times a month? Well, first of all, they never had how many times I actually trained correct. And they didn't take into because to me, training is, everything is training. So you have to define training to me. How many times a day do I train? I either train like 800 or I train like none. Because how do you want to look at it? Every time I'm forcing down a meal, to me, that's training. You know, every time I stretch, that's training. Every time I'm doing some mobility work, that's training. Generally speaking, if you go, how many times do you train? I'm going to talk about my main training sessions. So if I do 2 main heavy sessions a week, I'm probably doing 4 or more smaller ones that aren't really heavy, but it's getting me moving and it's helping me to recover and helping me to stay in shape. So that's the other thing. People ask these simple questions when, if you really want to know, try to go into a little more detail with that person and find out exactly what I do, which is interesting when I talk to people, especially when I do consults with clients. I'm like, how many times a week do you train? And they're like, so-and-so. And I'm like, you train heavy that many times a week? And they're like, well, no, this many is heavy, this many. I mean, you have to keep asking questions and pull that information. And usually when I'm like, will you just write down like your weekly schedule for me so I can look at it and see, and everything, write down everything you do. And even to work, well, like, what's your job? People don't, and I was like this for a long time. I'm a big tough guy, man. My job didn't affect my training. Yeah, bullshit. It affects your training. Depending on if you're sitting on your ass in an office all day, you're going to need more of a warm up. You're probably going to need a bunch of flexibility and mobility work. If you're a carpenter, you might not be able to come in and train as often or as hard. Or, well, again, train often or hard. There's all these levels of everything. You know, like people want to, like, say hit one set with a rest and then squeeze out a couple more compared to 4 sets. I know guys that can put way more energy into that one set than that person doing 4 sets. So if we're going to do an actual scientific study, let's try to figure out how much energy and exertion and intent is put into that one set compared to those 4. And then if a person takes, say, an hour and 45 minutes to get through everything they want to get through doing 4 sets of 12. So I cut them back to 1 set with the rest pause or force out a couple reps, and they get done with the same exercises in 45 minutes. I'm going to lean towards, I really feel an hour to an hour and 15 minutes for a heavy session. Once you go past that, you're not really getting, it's a fall off of gain to work. Now that's going to be different. If you're wearing gear and stuff, the fact is you're going to be in there a couple hours. There's just no way around it. It just takes that long. There are some other things you can do to change your programs and stuff and split your programs up that can help with that time frame. But what I'm saying is there's always these different factors. How much, people want to calculate, especially when people calculate volume. I'm like, okay, well, you're calculating volume, but at what percentage? And even if you're calculating it at a percentage, some people can do 80% of their 1 rep max really easy. Other people, 80% of their 1 rep max is still pretty tough on them. So how are you going to calculate intent and intensity going in? And then, of course, you can go to reps in reserve or what's the other one? Rate of perceived exertion, which, again, is going to be different, again, based on the individual. So the more I'm in this, the longer I'm in this, the more I go, you people all want this scientific facts and numbers, but there's way more to it of why things work. And I equate this kind of to mechanical physics, to quantum physics. There's so much deeper and there's so many other things going on that we need to calculate that. Or, calculate's not the right word. We need to be aware of that. And again, that's where I think an in-person coach comes into play, where he can kind of judge you. He should learn at some point to glance at you when you walk in, to watch you through your warm-ups, and to kind of learn to look for the things that lets him know today's a good day. Let's hit it today. And you know what? Something seems a little off, so let's pull things back a little bit today. And they're always changing on it. They have a long-term plan, but they're always changing day to day. They're not afraid to change. I don't know. What I'm hoping from this podcast is to start stirring some thought. I want to teach people to use their intelligence and not just their knowledge. You can read a lot of books. You can talk about all the science stuff. I think that's great. I think studies can help us kind of start weeding through things and give us a direction to go. But at some point, we have to take it under our own control, start using our own knowledge, and figuring things out for ourselves. I mean, I don't know what the term scientific actually means, and again, I should probably look that up. But to me, if you are studying and you're trying and you're thinking, one of my favorite things was Albert Einstein would do thought experiments. Well, that's still science to me. If you're sitting down and you're spending time just contemplating what you can change, what you can make better, why did this work, why didn't this work? What if this didn't work in this situation, but would it work in this situation? That's like theoretical physics. It's still science to me. And I think we need more of that now. And we need that kind of same theoretical, when you're looking at a study and you're like, oh, the study says I need to do this and this. Well, look into the study. Who did the study? How many people did they do it on? When they say this works, did they actually test it against some other different styles? Or are they just going, no, our showed these people gained and that's good. And then who were those people? What level were those people on? There's just so many different factors when it comes to a human being. And that's why even in the medical field, it's called practicing science or practicing medicine. Because they still don't know. They're still practicing because everyone's different. Every doctor I know will say that he's ran into different situations that he couldn't figure out. Me being a great example of that. I've stunned the medical community numerous times in my life with numerous different things that they couldn't actually figure out. Or it took them, my chronic compartment syndrome took years to figure out. And I was going to universities and having chiropractors and like all these different people, and friends of friends were telling people and trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And it finally took a friend of mine who is an MD who goes, Chad, I'm going to figure this out. And he actually went out on his own and started studying on his off time to eventually figure out what could possibly be going on. Unfortunately, surgery didn't work though. So that's just another thought. I want to get people to start thinking for themselves. And when you're looking, there are no true, well, again, I'm using a term that I need to define, expert. Just because somebody seems confident and just because somebody talks a lot about science doesn't necessarily mean that they really know what they're talking about. And I personally think you're going to be better off finding somebody who goes, they're confident in what they know, but in that same confidence, they know that they don't know everything. And they're willing to admit that, hey, there's still more out there. And is it the kind of person that continues to study in a way that they're looking for new information, not looking to justify what they know, or not caught into the whole scientific study thing? I need proof. Well, do you really? Like, how many studies go find people that have zero genetics and then try their stuff with them? And then try that same thing with high-level athletes and see what happens? We're all different. Every study I've ever looked at has holes in it. The question is, how big are the holes and how many holes are there? And if it works on anybody, I think that's a tool. Any program I ever look at that works for somebody could be a tool, because maybe I run across a person similar to that this is the key. This is the program that they're going to respond best to. And that may be because of their mentality. It might be because of their genetics. Who knows? And I don't even really care. If it works, it works. And I think that's why there's been so many successful people that basically kind of came up with their own stuff. And even with the idea that like, oh, all these great people came from this one gym, they all train the same. No, they don't. They don't all train. They still all do their own little things. Maybe the basis and outline of their program is the same, but they're all doing little different things. And in those situations, you got to calculate the camaraderie, competition, the mentality. I mean, you put people together, you put the right group together, they're all going to get better. The whole tide is going to raise all the ships. And that's an atmosphere. It might not even be that the program is all that amazing, but you got guys that have hunger and competition and will that's going to push them further. So more stuff to think about in your training. I know it's a little bit philosophical, but I think in training, you can't ignore the philosophical part of it. I have a lot of other stories where guys train exactly the same, get stuck. We break through a mental plateau. Now they're making huge gains, but they're still training the same. The training didn't change. Breaking through that mental barrier is what changed them. And that was because we had a team and we had guys pushing and we had guys going, wait a minute, we know this isn't the training. We know him. We know he need to break through this barrier. And then bam, all of a sudden the same training works. Till next time, check out Courage Barbell YouTube channel, Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast, CourageBarbell.com, Chad Ikes on Instagram. I'm out.
Thanks for listening to the Courage Barbell Unlimited podcast. For more information, please visit CourageBarbell.com. Until next time.